ago. So it's a little bit of an older video, but I still think it should be good. Because to honor 9/11, to honor the the events that took place, the loss of the lives on this day, I do want to start with this. And because I'm in Canada, because I used to live in Newfoundland, this one hit particularly close. So, well, let's start off with the wrong one. That's still my what's it called? There we go. So we're gonna start off with this one. This is it's a broadcast from about 10 years ago. About what happened in Gander, Newfoundland on 9/11. Because while some of you may not know this, when the attacks happened on 9/11, the tiny, and I do mean tiny, town of Gander, Newfoundland took in, I can't even recall exactly how many planes it was, and the entirety of the town opened their doors to all of the passengers on the plane. Yeah, the population like doubled or tripled. So I think this would be a very good video to watch on this day for 9/11.
This is 9/11, 10 years later. This is a story of unimaginable tragedy and devastating loss. A story of how the worst in human behavior brought out the best in the people of a tiny community on the outermost edge of North America.
Your heart went out to them, each and every one of them.
It is also a story of the coming together of two nations in a time of need.
It was very clear to me that there was no doubt that we could count on the Canadians.
And how a few unforgettable days led to a decade of change for Canada and the world. David Collinet was Canada's Minister of Transport when the 9/11 attacks took place. Collinet gave the order to close Canadian airspace in stages by allowing aircraft already in the air to continue to their destinations. But all takeoffs were stopped.
But then we had to deal with these flights on the North Atlantic, and NAV Canada did an incredible job along with the British Civil Aviation Authority.
And I don't know if you have to say it, not only NAV Canada, the air traffic controllers for Gander Airport. Oh my God. Like the air traffic control, bearing in mind, Gander Airport is tiny. Okay? I've been there. I've been to the Gander Airport. It is fucking tiny. Okay, there are a couple of airports in Newfoundland. And with the exception of St. John's on the east coast of Newfoundland, the other airports in Newfoundland are absolutely tiny. David, one terminal. That's how tiny. One terminal, and I think 2 gates. I believe that Gander Airport has maybe 2 gates in its airport. And for a while, I think someone mentioned it's got a landing strip that can like accommodate the shuttle for an emergency landing for the shuttle. I do also. Oh yeah, I gotta turn those off. Pelepice, thank you for the follow. What Gander also was an airport, like Gander and Stephenville airports, Stephenville being on the west coast, Gander being central, they were actually also utilized for military aircraft during World War II. So the United States used the Stephenville airports and the Gander airports for their military aircraft as well. They were like refueling stops and like parking areas, like even like in the town of Stephenville, there's like a whole section, like there was actually military billets for U.S. soldiers in Stephenville, and all of the street names are named after states in the United States. So that's why, like, they had the runway capacity, but bearing in mind, the Gander Airport is used to handling, I think you could maybe count on one or two hands the amount of air traffic that flowed through Gander Airport at the time. Cat, Nguyen. I am when I pop my ears on, I am a cat. But yeah, so bearing in mind, the Gander Airport handles maybe 10 flights a day. It is a tiny airport. So bearing that in mind.
Again, these are all verbal instructions that came from a minister in an SUV over a cell phone, communicated through a number of people to pilots over the Atlantic.
1,700.
Here it is. This is the interior of the Gander Airport. This is the majority of the Gander Airport, right here. As memory serves, I think you go up these steps and the gate, it might be here, if I remember. So you go up these steps, you come around, and I think, if memory serves, it's been a while since I've been in Gander Airport, like the gate, I think, might be in here, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, it is a tiny little airport. Absolutely tiny.
100 kilometers east of Ottawa, in Gander, Newfoundland, air traffic controllers at NAV Canada's Area Control Centre were about to have the busiest day of their careers.
When I arrived at work, the westbound flow coming from Europe was just starting to hit radar coverage in eastern Canada, and the airspace in the United States had been closed, and these aircraft were advised that they would have to land as soon as possible.
Hawk, before you go, just remember what I said. Remember what I said at the beginning of the stream. Hold that in your heart. Okay? If you know, when if you encounter that, just remember what I told you. Try and hold that in your heart for me. Okay?
Had been closed, and these aircraft were advised that they would have to land as soon as possible. So a lot of aircraft were then diverting towards Gander.
Speeder 1759, climbing
Thank you,
17,000.
NAV Canada's controllers are responsible for directing all air traffic in the western half of the Atlantic airspace, the busiest air corridor.
Well, Ian, you do now. Hi! Hi from Canada, Nguyen.
In the western half of the Atlantic airspace, the busiest air corridor in the world. On 9/11, like any other day, there were hundreds of planes approaching Newfoundland en route to Canadian and U.S. destinations.
Some aircraft who had enough fuel decided to turn around and go back to Europe. Those that were beyond the point of return decided that they were going to land in Canada.
This radar image, recorded on 9/11, reveals the tracks of the aircraft on approach to North America. The traces marked in yellow are landing at Gander International Airport.
As
Look at
most
that.
people are aware, Gander's a fairly big airport for the size of the town that it serves. So we do have the facilities here to handle a lot of aircraft. The main difference between a normal day and 9/11 is that we just had more aircraft, and we're set up to handle one or two large aircraft at a time. So having 38 at a time was taxing our abilities a little bit, but we got through it.
200.
Did you hear what that man just said? Listen again to what this man just said.
We're set up to handle one or two large aircraft at a time, so having 38 at a time was taxing our abilities a little bit, but we got through it.
It was taxing our abilities a little bit, but we got through it. No, 384, not 138, 38. So yeah, they had 38 large, like 747s, basically all doing hot laps around the airport. And these guys that are used to only taking on like one or two, and not even big aircraft. Like, bearing in mind, the majority of the aircraft coming through were not large 747s. most of the aircraft that they have coming through are like half the size of a 747, and they're dealing with large aircraft in great numbers. And his response, yeah, we're not used to it, and it taxed us a little bit, but we got for it. Like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. Well, yes, I don't think they taxied them to the grass, Schultz. I think they may have parked them. Bearing in mind, remember, the Gander Airport has a large runway because, again, it was used for the military during World War II, and so the capacity, because it was was bringing in those large aircraft for the U.S. military. The airport, that's why he said, like, the airport is very large compared to the size of a town. And I think in reference to that, he's talking about like the runway space, the taxi space, the parking space. That's what he's referencing, is like it's very large in comparison to the town. Not so much the terminal, but the airstrip itself is very sizable.
224 flights were diverted to Canada that day, carrying more than 33,000 passengers.
No one could foresee what the United States government would do. It closed its airspace and said nothing could go over the United States. And I understand why the Americans did that. But what about us? I mean, we're the neighbor.
We found ourselves in a circumstance of really having to scramble. I mean, we were informed after the fact. We weren't consulted about it, and we had to really scramble to kind of deal with the closure and the fact that so many planes were routed to Canadian airfields to land, particularly out in the Maritimes.
There we go. So there's a that's a picture of Gander. That's all the planes that Gander took in. Actually, I will disappear for a second so you guys can properly see it. I'm going to vanish for a second. So that is so that is all of the planes that Gander took in that day. That may not even be all of them yet. This may not actually even be all of the planes that they took in that day. So, yeah. They took in a lot, and someone said I think they tripled their population. I don't think they quite tripled it. I do believe that they doubled their population size with this event. So I believe that the population of Gander did double.
By the time the skies were cleared, 39 airliners from all over the world were jammed onto the 4 runways surrounding the Gander Airport. More than 6,600 stranded passengers stayed inside their planes to await processing by Canada Customs and RCMP officers.
And we had to be sure, before we let anybody off those planes, that there weren't terrorists on board. And that was tough because we didn't have security officials, customs officials, RCMP. We didn't have enough people. So we had to fly people into those places like Gander, Goose Bay.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
To supplement the regular.
Yeah, and that's one thing to remember is I think at the time, if memory serves, at the time they only had like customs and border protection. I think at the St. John's Airport, because at the time, I believe the St. John's Airport was the only port of entry into Canada in Newfoundland. And that's all the way on the East Coast. And they probably did not have that many. And as far as like an RCMP contingent, RCMP, for those of you that don't know, is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They are the National Police Department. The RCMP it covers all of Canada. And there's not a large contingent of RCMP on the island. It's not county, Schultz, country. The RCMP is the Canadian police. It's effectively speaking, it's the RCMP is a combination of the FBI and state police. You could kind of say it's a combination of those. They are the police department that covers the entire country. And no, Garrett, Gander took in planes from everywhere. There was no, it was not Newfoundland planes. It was, Gander took in flights from everywhere, from the US, from Europe, anybody that could not divert, they, why did that get pinned? Gander took in planes from everywhere. A lot of it was European plane, a lot of planes that were inbound from Europe. There were some that were inbound from the US. They weren't, that they simply just, they were at the point where they didn't have enough fuel to turn around. Like Gander was the closest airport. So yeah, they took in planes from everywhere.
Personnel.
At the time, I don't think we really had any concerns about who or what might be on the aircraft. We had a lot of, there was obviously a lot of police presence here and a lot of security presence from a lot of different agencies here that particular day.
And by the way, you'll notice what two flags are flying behind him. Notice what two flags are flying behind him. Bearing in mind, this interview took place 10 years after 9/11, and look what two flags are still flying behind him. U.S. and Canadian flags. Because again, Gander was used for military purposes for the U.S. during World War II to facilitate planes traversing to Europe. It was a refueling point for a lot of U.S. military planes on the way to Europe.
Presence here and a lot of security presence from a lot of different agencies here that particular day.
We tried not to look outside what our job was. Our main focus that morning was to get these airplanes safely on the ground.
The Canadian response was overwhelming. We had about 25,000 Americans, in addition to several thousand from other countries, who arrived in Canada unexpectedly because the U.S. airspace was closed. You know, like up in Gander, there were literally more stranded airline passengers than people who lived in Gander.
By the afternoon of September 11th, curious onlookers lined the roads by the airport in Gander to view the dozens of planes now parked on its runways.
Yeah, because bearing in mind, this right here is the Trans-Canada Highway. It's TCH, TCH1. This highway right here that's traversing next to the airport is the singular roadway that traverses the entirety of the province. This road right here stretches from the west coast to the east coast, and it goes right by the Gander Airport.
Roads by the airport in Gander to view the dozens of planes now parked on its runways.
Well, the first day was a lot of uncertainties because we weren't sure how long the aircraft.
Yes, Kaiba. Yes, as far as like what would be considered quote unquote interstate travel, yes, it is effectively speaking a one road province. There's one road that stretches from one side of the island to the other side of the island. It is what literally connects the west coast to the east coast. There is other than air or sea, the only way to drive from one side of the island to another side of the island is the Trans-Canada Highway, that singular road.
Uncertainties because we weren't sure how long the aircraft was going to be here. So when they landed, we weren't sure if they were going to be here for 5 hours, 3 hours, or 6 hours, or 6 days. We didn't know because the Americans at the airspace shut down, and it was just a waiting game to see if they were going to open it up. But I gave us probably 12 or 14 hours after the first plane landed before they decided that the airspace was going to be shut down for a while, and that's when we started getting people out of the planes.
As the Gander Airport terminal gradually filled with more and more exhausted passengers, the need to find them food and shelter was growing. Beulah Cooper is a longtime volunteer with the Royal Canadian Legion.
I was more than surprised. I never realized there were so many planes. I think there was something like 37, 39 planes. And I thought, gosh, where are they going to put them all? I mean, that almost doubled the population of Gander.
By the way, if you listen, if you guys have ever wondered what does a Newfie accent sounds like, you're hearing it. You're not hearing the Bayman accents. She is more of a townie accent. It's not the Bayman accent where you can only understand one out of every 5 words, but this is what a Newfie sounds like.
Them all. I mean, that almost doubled the population of Gander.
Hear it again, because
As
it's
the
a
thousands
townie
of
accent,
travelers
not a
began to
Bay
flood into
accent.
Gander and surrounding towns and villages, the enormous scale of the humanitarian crisis began to hit home.
We started using the churches, organizations like the Lions Club, the Legion, the Masonic Temple, any place that we could find, you know, the trade school, the community colleges and that.
One of the places the passengers were taken was the Gander campus of the College of the North Atlantic, where Mac Moss was the school's administrator.
This is the room where we assembled all of our passengers. When they got off the aircraft, they didn't see a lot at the airport of what was going on. And when they came here and saw the televisions for the first time, CNN kept replaying that all day long on all of the television networks. 300 people came in here, and the place was deathly quiet because they were watching what was going on. This is the first time they knew why they were detained at the airport and why they couldn't go.
That must have been. Can you imagine how terrifying it must have been for all of these passengers, like sitting in places like the church, the College of North Atlantic, and on the TV, seeing for the first time what's going on, and that their home country has been the victim of a massive terrorist attack. Can you imagine how terrifying that is? Like, the fear and confusion must have just been heart-stopping. It's just absolutely heart-stopping seeing them on television. Like, okay, for those of you that were alive and of a mature enough age to understand what was happening, picture what remember how you felt when you saw what happened on 9/11, when you saw the news broadcasts about 9/11, you saw what happened with the planes, and you initially had no idea what was going on, and then you heard it was a terrorist attack. Imagine how you felt from the comfort of your home in the U.S. and how terrifying that was to hear that. Now imagine getting that kind of news in a foreign land, and you don't know when you're going to be able to get home to see your loved ones. You have no means of really checking in on your loved ones. A lot of these people probably were not able to get through to their loved ones back in the States. Imagine being in a foreign country, not exactly foreign, it's not like foreign, but being in another country and seeing all of this happening on TV. Imagine how much even more terrifying it might be. Sure.
So the emotion was tremendous.
Every hallway, every classroom would soon be transformed into makeshift dormitories for nearly 400 weary and frightened travelers.
Staff members had asked their families if they had blankets, sleeping bags, cots, air mattresses, whatever, and to get them to the campus.
Thousands of stranded travelers were desperate to make telephone calls to reassure those back home that they were safe.
Yep.
So special phone services were set up outside community centers to help meet the demand.
The size of Gander is actually doubled. So we took it upon ourselves this morning to set up these telephones so that people could make international calls to everywhere. We've had people here calling to all continents in the world.
So many worried travelers needed to call home.
You put yourself in their shoes, and they didn't know what was going on back home, and they didn't know if any of their families were involved. Yep. Some of them when they first came, and you put yourself in their shoes and think, you know, how would you feel? And your heart went out to them, each and every one of them.
Beulah Cooper was volunteering at the Royal Canadian Legion Hall, where the phones were in constant demand. So she decided to take matters into her own hands.
I took 3 ladies to make phone calls. And the 3 ladies I took were the 3 that stayed here.
It wasn't long before Beulah had befriended the 3 women, and they accepted her invitation to come and stay at her home as long as they needed to.
This is a lady that stayed with me. She was from Brooklyn, New York. And this is another lady. This one here, she was from Niagara Falls, New York. And this one was from Seattle, Washington.
And she was not the only one to do this. The people of Gander opened their homes to all these people. They opened their homes. They gave them a place to lay their head. They fed them, because God knows Newfies will feed you. Dear God, Newfies will feed you. Like, they gave them an oasis in this moment of, in this nightmare. They gave them an oasis. Leo, I'm guessing moose meat stew. Moose meat is a common thing, like stew, peas pudding, yeah, like a shepherd's meal. My guess is that kind of stuff. That's a traditional, like, Sunday type dinner. Yes, Garrett, moose meat and the moose hunts on Newfoundland are a big thing. No, Rudy, I've been asked this many times. I am not particular to poutine. I am not. It was in Coxco, the gentleman who was down the street from the Towers broken into tears. Oh, God. Oh, not necessarily shepherd's pie for. There's like, oh, I'm forgetting what it's called. It's like shepherd's dinner is what it's called. Not shepherd's pie, it's shepherd's dinner, which is like it's like beef and it's like cabbage and vegetables and stuffing and like it's just like it's a full meal. It's kind of a traditional like Sunday dinner that Newfoundlanders make. And you know, it can feed a lot of people because you're basically just you're putting stuff into a giant fucking pot and cooking it up. And that's like, this was September, so I'm guessing the fishing was probably happening at this time too. So I'm guessing there's probably a lot of like, the moratorium on cod was still in place, but like lobster and crab, like lobster's a big thing in Newfoundland. So I'm sure, like, I'm sure they did like lobsters. Did they do, let's see, other fish, like whitefish, I think mussels, yeah, it might not have been crab season around September, but it might have been lobster season, I think. I'm trying to remember what lobster season. Rudy, lobster. Hands down, lobster is my favorite seafood.
The idea was to try to keep people out of people's homes because you didn't know who was going in. But don't tell that to Newfoundlanders. That's not their way. They saw somebody walking down the street. They knew they were from the plane. They would take them into their house and feed them and let them sleep and let them shower. That was just the thing to do.
Oh, I would have loved to have taken the whole works up here. If I had the room, I would have brought the whole works of them up here. That's just who I am.
A lot of
the thousands of stranded travelers had settled into their temporary homes with just the clothes on their backs. Soon, donated clothing began to flood into the shelters. With food, shelter, and clothing now taken care of, many of Gander's guests had other more serious concerns.
Many of the medications were in their checked luggage. And so the nurses, you know, took their medical requirements or drug requirements, and we worked with the hospital and the local pharmacies.
The local pharmacies provided the prescription medications without charge. Emergency medical care was also ready and waiting at the local hospital. Even the town's stores opened their doors to the air travelers, allowing them to take needed items off the shelves free of charge.
Do you see? Oh, God. Do you see? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I wanted to show this video. It's so fucking important. Like, in a time of crisis, this tiny little town, and yes, Gander is a tiny little town, opened itself up and gave these travelers anything they needed. Absolutely anything they needed. Rudy, I want to say the population of, I off the top of my head, I don't remember the population, but I believe the population of Gander at the time was maybe like 10,000. I could be mistaken about that, but small. Yes, Reverend Gander is still, it may have grown slightly, but it's still small. Yeah, okay, 11,000. So I was close. Yeah. Gander, yeah, it was a population of just over 11,000. That is smaller than most moderate-sized suburban towns in the United States. Like, it was smaller than most suburban towns in the U.S. And, like, they opened up their homes and they gave these people anything they needed. Anything. Like, that's why the story of Gander, I wanted to tell it. That's why I wanted to tell this story, is because this is what we need to remember is possible. This is what we need to remember is possible with humanity. The people of Gander did not care who they were, where they came from, what they looked like. They only knew that these people were in need, that they needed help, and they helped them. That's all that mattered. It's all that mattered, is these people needed help, and they gave them help. That's why this video is so important today. To remember that this happens. That this happens. We need to remember this kind of kindness. This kind of giving and generosity. That when people are in need, others are there that will just step up without any hesitation and do whatever is needed to help others. Help.
And the shopping clerk actually invited us to her house to take a shower. So it's been like that ever since we've been here. So it's just phenomenal. Can't thank you guys enough for what you've done.
The outpouring of concern and assistance by the people of Gander left their guests overwhelmed with gratitude.
We just can't get over the hospitality of the people of Gander. It's just been absolutely amazing what they've done for us.
We are so appreciative that everyone has just rolled out the red carpet for us, and we feel almost like celebrities.
You are.
I've been standing here at the academy here.
Gander Academy.
Yeah. And the people are real nice, I can't believe it,
It's incredible how generous and how friendly and just downright nice everyone has been here.
I just cannot believe how out of the way that people have gone to be kind to us. In a circumstance like this, you could not ask for anything more.
I think if you go back to 9/11, I think on that day we saw the worst of mankind.
My dad's story of 9/11, he had come from a PTA. He got to his job. No employees or customers were in the break room hugging other.
Yeah, there's a bit of a limit.
To 9/11. I think on that day we saw the worst of mankind. But I think that if you talk to the people that was here in Gander, that they saw the best of mankind, and a lot of people left there with a new sense of hope. They left there with a new sense of pride, that they still went away thinking there's still good people left in our society.
I'm going to have these memories that I will have with me forever, really, of the unbelievable and overwhelming response of the Canadian government and the Canadian people helping my country in our time of need.
Oh, Caucasian, I imagine they did. Oh, I don't think that last one is Gander. I don't believe this is Gander. This is somewhere else. I'm not sure exactly where that is.
I lived near the Air Force Academy, which is always a target at the Still. I live a little bit further away, but I still live near it. Both parents were stuck on lockdown for a few hours. Mom got released first and then my dad in the evening. Both worked on the academy. Not saying which way I've moved.
Yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys because on a day like today, it's important. It's important to remember that. Not for the tragedy that happened, but the absolute outpouring of generosity and kindness and compassion for other people. It's important to remember it, especially now.